Recording live from Glory Hole Studios in Chicago and beyond. This is Cognitive Dissonance. Every episode, we blast anyone who gets in our way. We bring critical thinking, skepticism, and irreverence to any topic that makes the news, makes it big, or makes us mad. It's skeptical, it's political, and there is no welcome mat. Today is Thursday, March the 5th, and let's think what happened since we last recorded last week. Oh, we're now at war with Iran.
Yeah, I mean, is it a war, though? Can you say that? Are you allowed to? Because sometimes you say it, and then sometimes you take it back.
It is.
Sometimes it feels like a war. Sometimes it's not.
It's only a war if it comes from the sparkling war region of France. Otherwise, it's just a sparkling hostility.
Yeah, it's like otherwise it's a sparkling bombing. Yeah. I mean, what I saw was us definitively attack Iran.
Oh my, yeah.
Blow up ships, attack a school.
Yeah.
That's been reported,
right,
like from multiple different sources that there was a school that blew up, that we killed a bunch of people. Although the administration I saw yesterday was essentially not denying it, but saying we're looking into it, but we know that there's a lot of propaganda that gets spread during wars, so we're not sure whether it's true or not, et cetera, et cetera. So again, you're fighting against, it's so funny to fight against your own propaganda machine.
Right. Yeah.
So there's been that's happened. And then when talking about it, Rubio called it a war. Another senator called it a war. And then when they were asked again, they had to roll it back. At one point, Rubio said out loud that the reason we did it is because Israel was going to attack them first and we wanted to do it first. And then later they're like, is that what you say? He's like, no, I didn't say that. And it's literally on tape.
The messaging has been fucking insane on this whole thing.
It's insanity, dude.
Because really, there was very little messaging out to the public in the lead up to this war. And it is a war. It's a war. And Congress is supposed to get a say in whether or not we do that, but they've absolutely abdicated their responsibility.
They tried to get a vote yesterday and it failed.
And they failed to get a vote for war resolution.
That's in the Senate. I don't. The House is today, but I have no idea. It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter, right?
Because it's not going to go anywhere in the Senate. So it doesn't matter.
So essentially, now what we have is a president who has complete carte blanche to just launch and this is not this, for a long time, presidents have exercised some amount of unilateral authority for limited missions or limited strike operations, things along those lines. But this is a full out war.
Sure,
that's what's happening.
Straight up, yeah.
Like Rubio said, like Rubio did say, he's like, yeah, basically Israel forced our hand into doing this. But then Trump can't allow that to be the narrative. So he's like, oh no, if anything, I forced Israel's hand into doing it, is what he came back with. He's like, I can't we're certainly leading, not following.
When it comes to bloodthirsty countries, we are the
bloodthirstiest. Look, I do have a lot of thoughts about the Iranian thing, and let me just throw a few things out there for consideration. I think it's I've been wrestling with this since the buildup.
Sure.
I've been thinking about it since the buildup. I think you can hold several ideas in your head at once at all times, and they can all be true. And I think we have to do that in this case. The binary of this war is good or this war is bad is kind of the wrong way to look at really complicated issues like war. Most of the time, not always, some wars were just illegitimate, but most of the time it's fairly complicated. I think you can very comfortably say it is unreasonable to be a fan of the Iranian regime as it stood, right?
Of course.
They were horrifying to their people. They were state sponsors of terrorism all over the world. They massacred their civilians by the thousands in recent protests.
Very recent, yeah.
They have a history of human rights abuses against women. They are a nightmare regime.
Women are human, I'm just saying.
Yeah, that's specifically against women. Thank you. They're a nightmare.
I'm sorry. Yeah.
No. They're a fucking nightmare. And all of that can be true while at the same time saying, one, I don't trust specifically this administration. to have planned this, because they obviously didn't plan it.
How could you, though?
To prosecute it reasonably,
been a moment in their past where you thought, these are the guys I want behind the wheel.
No.
For anything,
man.
Anything.
I wouldn't, if the mission was like, hey, we're going to go to Burger King and get chicken fries, I'd be like, not with these guys.
I wouldn't give them sharp scissors to cut a ribbon.
Dude, is there a world where,
give the little kid scissors, the safety preschool scissors?
No.
I would have an adult cut it for him.
Can you imagine giving Hegseth a hot glue gun? Are you kidding me?
He just glues the can of beer to his hand, pouring it in there.
So while I think it's okay to say, like, look, generally speaking, I do think that the regime as it stood in Iran was a real problem that was difficult and thorny and complicated to think about and to try to figure out how to contain. And you can have a reasonable argument about like what containment should look like and whether it should involve force. But I think there's no argument to be made, none at all that I can understand, that would say this administration had a right to do it.
Yeah.
That they had a legal right to do it. They didn't have a moral right. We didn't have a legal right. We didn't have a defense right to do it. I don't think that it's reasonable. I don't think there's any world where we could say they're going to do a good job. They are not going to do a good job. Trump said, like, when he was asked, like, hey, who's going to take charge? You blew up all the guys in charge. He's like, well, the second set of guys we're going to talk to, we blew those guys up too. I guess we'll talk to the third set if they're still alive. Yeah. And then he's like, asked, like, what's the worst case scenario? He's like, well, it's entirely possible there'll be even worse guys in charge when we're done with this. There's no planning. There's no foresight. It's a massive country, massive, giant country, the most powerful country outside Israel militarily in the Middle East. And like, no fucking planning, no long-term gain, no, like, we should have already been working with like a political opposition force if we're going to knock out the regime. It's not just like you say, like, all right, well, who wants to be the commerce secretary? Raise your hand.
Sure.
That's not how any of this works. So
it's like going to buy a car by yourself in your own car.
Yes,
and
right.
And being like, well, I don't know how to get it home.
Right.
Well, I don't know. And then you're stuck. And then you got to go back and bring the fox back across the road. And you got to set the grain down. And there's a whole thing. Yeah, you're 100% right, Tom. There's I agree that, sure, was it a despotic, terrible regime? Of course it was.
Yeah.
Like, it was terrible. But what I think I see, and again, I can't tell the fucking motivations of this group. There's one of two motivations. The first one is like, do whatever Israel says. That seems to be pretty much what we're seeing in this administration. What Israel says to do, you pretty much get to do that. Oh, we're going to put our guys out we're going to shoot a bunch of shit down. We're going to, this fucking Lord of War that we got back there is going to be like, we're going to kill everything.
That guy's fucking nuts.
Crazy. So that dude, sure, all you have to do is unleash that guy. And what they want is they want somebody here who's gonna basically, Israel wants people who will listen to him and do their bidding. And that's what we're doing. Look, man, this is 100% doing the bidding of another country.
Yeah, man.
That being said, there's another part of me that wonders if what Trump is doing is looking around the world for unpopular leaders that are currently hurting the people that are in their country to topple without any plan to fix anything afterwards, just so he could possibly be named as a Peace Prize guy later on.
Yeah, look, I don't think that's wrong at all. I think that he has set his sights on 3 countries, and he wants to have a legacy name as the guy who tackled the 3 biggest problems and it was Venezuela, Cuba, and Iran. He's got he's mentioned for Iran, the Venezuelan model, which is you go in, you take out the leadership, and then the sort of secondary leadership, in the case of Venezuela, the vice president of the previous administration, just takes over. And he's like, that's a good model, except for that model doesn't make sense in Iran. It never made sense. Like, there's no analysis that you can possibly read where that makes any sense whatsoever. Because, like, what you will do is replace a hardline Islamic cleric with possibly even a harder line Islamic cleric. They're literally likely to name the Ayatollah Ali Khamenei's son, who is by all accounts, at least as hardline, if not more.
Yeah, and he's swole. Yeah,
right. Yeah, right.
He's like young and swole and angry.
Right. He's not 86.
We did the same thing, by the way, in Texas with Crenshaw. We took Crenshaw out. I
saw that.
And it's like, the guy is even crazier than Crenshaw. He's like a psychopath, crazy right guy.
How is that
like
even a possibility?
The third farthest right person in Texas. They like pulled everybody. They're like, everybody get a line.
We'll take that guy.
And they're like, go to the far back. And we'll take 1, 2, 3, it's you. And it's that guy. That's what we did here.
Yeah.
So they're doing it over there. Like, yeah, no, what we want is hard right guys. Yeah. Hard right guys are good for this regime.
It's a fucking mess.
It's a sight. He's
crazy. Not now. Now we're like fucking Hegseth had like almost a visible boner behind the podium when he's talking about blowing up a Iranian warship with a torpedo for the first time since World War II. Like you could hear his fucking dick hit wood from behind that podium. He thinks this is great.
Yeah. He's a monster. He's a shitty, awful human being.
Yeah.
And look at how he talks to people who are asking legitimate questions. He's just like, oh, that's a gotcha question. It's like, no, that's like an actual question with data that I need to know the answer to.
Dude, a gotcha question isn't a question you don't like because you don't have an answer for it.
Yeah. Or you don't want to answer.
Right. Yeah. Like if my boss calls me up and I'm like, I just don't know the answer, man. That's not a gotcha.
Yeah.
I was not prepared. Shame on me.
They had a closed door briefing with some of the top Democrats, and they were just horrified after they learned that they literally have no plan. And then they came out of the room and they're like, guys, they got no plan.
Yeah.
Guys, they don't have a plan. And here's how you... maybe the Democrats are lying, Tom. Maybe it's a big lie.
Maybe.
You know what you need to do as a Republican then? Tell us your plan.
Tell us the plan, Stan.
Hey, and then they didn't. Didn't. And then you're just like, yeah, no, I think the only people you can believe in this are the Democrats saying they don't have a plan and that it's essentially just going to be a forever war.
Maybe he's got concepts of a plan.
It's going to take him as long to roll out his health care.
Yeah. I've got rudiments of a concept of the preface for a plan.
It's so insane. There's also, in the same vein, from Fox News, basically, I'm not going to I'll read the headline here. It says Trump threatens to cut trade with Spain over Iran defense spending, but it's really over Spain not letting us land there and like bomb shit. And he got so mad in the briefing. He's like, well, we're just going to cut off trade with them. And you're like, that's $47 billion worth of trade. And he's like, yeah, I don't care.
It's all Iberico ham, too. It's all $47 billion of ham.
I would jump into $47 billion of Iberico ham like Scrooge McDuck. It's just what it is a guy who has literally no limits in office, doing literally anything he wants. There's never any repercussions. This is what Congress has sort of filtered away and like evaporated their power up for years and years and years. And the Supreme Court has basically emboldened with a decision. This is what you get. This is the Frankenstein
100%.
Monster of a president that you get when you do those two things in conjunction.
Yeah, man.
There's a lightning strike from the fucking from the top Congress, of the tower, and then the Supreme Court's all standing around chanting like it's alive, and it stands up.
You got a white streak in your hair now. It's a whole thing.
It's Donald Trump.
The whole thing.
It's Donald Trump, and he's even got on his neck. There's the studs are starting.
What is
the studs
that,
are
dude?
Starting to come through the skin from underneath.
Holy necrotic Batman! What the fuck is that?
It's so funny because I saw a question asked to that lady with the puckery lips. They said, hey, what's going on with the fucking dude's neck? And she said, we told you yesterday that it's going away. So it's just, the doctor said it's just a topical cream. And they're like, yeah, but what's the topical cream treating? And they're like, it's preventative. And like, preventing what? And they won't answer the question.
There's not like a preventative cream that you smear that causes all your skin to fucking flake off and turn red and die.
He looks horrible. I just, like, every day you're just hoping for one of the maladies that is keeping his body in that fragile equilibrium.
Clots and prayers, man. Clots and prayers. I will say this too. If you were some guy who has always thought that Trump was nothing more than a fucking easy tool for Russia to use, and you wanted to take a lens and say, hey, how does this impact Russia? And you said, well, I mean, the Strait of Hormuz is going to close, and that's going to choke off 1/5 of the world's oil supply. And that will inevitably cause Russia's oil to become much more valuable at a time that their economy is in real trouble right now because they've got to feed this enormous war machine. And then also it's going to, make America and its allies run lower on these interceptor missiles, which are millions of dollars trying to fight these very inexpensive drones and other missiles, which will degrade Ukraine's capacity to fight and defend itself against Russia. You might actually think, Cecil, if you were inclined.
I just want to say that they wrote a strongly worded letter that they were upset.
Yeah,
afterwards.
okay. There you go. Yeah.
That's a key.
This is so good for Russia. If you're Russia right now, you're like, idiot.
We are in a time, though, where don't expect this to be the thing that's going to be in the news in the next few weeks because some new fresh hell will take its place.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
I'm really genuinely worried that this will be different only in scales of being much worse than Iraq. I think it will. I think we'll have boots on the ground in a few weeks, like combat troops and boots on the ground in a few weeks. I would be shocked, actually, if that were not the case. And these power vacuums open up nothing but room for terrorism and chaos and ISIS. I mean, the whole ISIS caliphate only happened because we just created a massive power vacuum through our military adventuring.
You're not wrong.
I don't see an upside with these guys in charge specifically, with no planning and no foresight and no opposition leadership ready to step in and take control. Nobody is articulating how this could go well.
I would say, too, the other big issue is that people are making a big deal and publishing images of emails or people complaining about Trump. But I haven't seen much of his base really flip on him. If it did, you would see a different result in the Senate, right? If his base really was changing their stripes and saying, hey, you can't just go to war, because what he ran on was no more wars. Right?
I know.
So, and look, all politicians lie, all politicians distort the truth, all politicians fail to meet the promises that they plan ahead of time. That happens all the time.
Right.
100%. I get it. I thought everything that he promised to do was terrifying. Right. So anything he falls short on, great.
Right.
But this was one of the things that I actually agreed with. I was like, yeah, man, I don't want to go to new wars either. I don't want to be wasting taxpayer money on places across the globe that we're not prepared to do the hard work to help fix. We proved that in Afghanistan. We weren't prepared at all to stay there and do any hard work to help fix. What we wanted to do was go over there because we were mad about 9/11, and then we got stuck over there because we were like, well, if we pull out, it's going to fall apart. And then eventually we were just like, well, just get rid of the Band-Aid. That's the entirety of our time in Afghanistan, right? Man. We didn't ever have a plan. We never really did anything. It sort of fell apart. It basically fell back to exactly who was holding it before we went over there.
Within a day.
It fell back exactly to those people. So we knew what was going to happen. You knew it was going to be there. And you were fighting them for 20 years over there.
Yep.
You were fighting them on all the time. There was always... So it's a terrible call to do it without any plans. And we never have plans.
Never.
So bad idea. Bunch of wasted money. I agree. But at the same time, if it was something that the people on his side cared about enough, there would be a pushback. And I'm not seeing it, at least politically. You might see somebody's leopards ate my face post about their kid going to war now on a ship or something. But other than that, you're not seeing real pushback against this in substantive ways that could slow his power down.
Absolutely.
That's not a thing you're seeing.
No.
So it essentially doesn't matter. It might as well not even exist if it doesn't slow his power down at all. I
was watching Marjorie Taylor Greene absolutely go off on this. She fucking went off on it. It was actually really funny, React video, because she went off, and of course I'm like, fucking, am I agreeing with Marjorie Taylor Greene? And the joke of it was no, Marjorie Taylor Greene agrees with me. Yeah. I agreed first, because I don't want to be agreeing. Yeah. But one thing that I think is really worth pointing out, I realized when I was watching this yesterday, is that Marjorie Taylor Greene, who I have no love for at all, but she has been exactly perfectly consistent all the way through. And the reason that she is suddenly finds herself on the outs with the MAGA base and the MAGA movement and all them other MAGA politicians is the rest of them. She was like, here are my key issues. There are the MAGA issues. And she is a straight line inflexible on all of them. And all the rest of them are like, well, MAGA is really whatever Trump wants to do.
What he wants to do today.
So we never had any principles. We never really believed any of these things. None of this stuff was important. So whatever he says is now the new thing. Like however he wants to ram his dick down my throat was always the way I wanted him to ram his dick down my throat. And so I just think she's like, well, but this is what you said. And it's like, yeah, I guess welcome, Marjorie. Like, do you want to come over here?
Yeah, I mean,
I don't know. You're horrible.
Stay over there.
Horrible.
Stay over there and just vote right one time in your life.
Yeah.
The missile knows where it is at all times. It knows this because it knows where it isn't. By subtracting where it is from where it isn't, or where it isn't from where it is, whichever is greater, it obtains a difference or deviation. The guidance subsystem uses deviations to generate corrective commands to drive the missile from a position where it is to a position where it isn't, and arriving at a position where it wasn't, it now is. Consequently, the position where it is now the position that it wasn't, and it follows that the position that it was is now the position that it isn't. In the event that the position that it is not the position that it wasn't, the system has acquired a variation. The variation being the difference between where the missile is and where it wasn't. If variation is considered to be a significant factor, it too may be corrected by the GEA. However, the missile must also know where it was. The missile guidance computer scenario works as follows. Because a variation has modified some of the information the missile has obtained, it is not sure just where it is. However, it is sure where it isn't, within reason, and it knows where it was. It now subtracts where it should be from where it wasn't, or vice versa. And by differentiating this from the algebraic sum of where it shouldn't be and where it was, it is able to obtain the deviation and its variation, which is called error.
All right, this story is from CNN. Takeaways from Kristi Noem's combative Senate Judiciary Committee hearing.
She had a House one yesterday, and that one came out. There's a bunch of stuff that came out in that, too. They asked her very specifically if she was having sex with one of the people who was closest to her, and she wouldn't answer the question. She said it was a tabloid question. And like, well, then just answer it.
Just say, if the answer is no.
The answer is no, just say no.
Right.
She wouldn't answer the question. So she pushed and whatever back and forth on that. But I think the biggest takeaway from this thing, obviously the one takeaway I have is she says something like, they asked her, they said, you called Alex Preddy a domestic terrorist. And then she corrected them and said, no, I said it was an act of domestic terrorism. And they said, and nobody said, well, who commits acts of domestic terrorism?
Right.
Would it be perhaps a domestic terrorist?
Yeah.
You don't, it's not like I'm accidentally tying my shoe.
Right.
and then I murder somebody who's, that's not how this works. You have to commit that. So it's just a crazy thing to think. But nobody calls her on it, right? So that was one of the big things. But the biggest thing for me is just the amount of money that they were spending on these ads. And there's another story we'll cover too. $220 million. And one of it was like one bit of that money was 140 some million that went directly to a corporation that was started 11 days before that is highly tied to Noem. So she's essentially taking money, lots of money. We're talking about millions and millions of dollars and siphoning it to people who she knows or whatever. And they're making like fucking viral like videos for her. And not a lot either.
No.
So something like 8 videos and a few radio spots for $140 million. And it was a company that was just created a few days before.
Like 2 weeks prior, less than 2 weeks prior.
What I hear a lot, and I listen to Joe Rogan for the No Rogan Experience with Michael Marshall, right? So we spend a lot of time listening to Joe Rogan. On that show, what Joe has seized on recently, whenever he talks about anything that's happening in our country, and especially when there's ever any governmental overreach in certain areas, what he will talk about is, well, they were trying to go after all the fraud. And the places where he says that there were fraud is the people who came in and told him about the fraud. So Mike Benz came in and told him about the fraud that was happening with USAID. So he came in and he had a big list of all the fraud that was happening. We found out later that none of that stuff was really true. Elon wasted more money than he fucking actually saved anybody. The stuff they cut was actually stuff that helps people all around the globe, but instead we just cut it because we were just mean and angry and shitty, and we wanted to pretend that there was some sort of fraud. Joe doesn't realize that. Joe thinks there was actually fraud. The other fraud that they talk about all the time is the Minnesota fraud. So they say there was fraud in Minnesota, which is why the ICE agents were up there. And then now Joe thinks there was coordinated protests by the government to go after the ICE agents to help protect them because they had fraud. It's a crazy...
What?
It's insanity what he believes.
What?
It's insanity what he believes. So all you have to do is let's listen to the Rand Paul episode if you're interested. You can hear him sort of put all these pieces together. And also, to listen to the Andrew Wilson episode, he talks about it because that's the one after Alex Preddy. So after Alex Preddy died.
What do you think Joe Rogan's budget is for push pins and strings? It's got to be very high, right?
It's insane. He's got a Staples card. For sure. The final piece of fraud that he most recently found out about, and that will again become part of his vernacular, is RFK came in and had a conversation with him about all the fraud that they're stopping, right? So they're stopping a ton of fraud. They're saying through medical devices, there's these countries that were pretending to be Medicare eligible, and they would just collect all the money that was being sent to them and send it off to different countries, essentially.
Sure.
So that's what he said is happening. Joe 100% believes it and thinks it's true. The problem is what they're doing is they're saying all this fraud exists out in the world. There's a bunch of fraud. And what they're doing is instead of dealing with the fraud and saying, hey, you know what? We need better checks in place to fix and make sure that this fraud doesn't go anywhere. What they're doing is just turning off the spigot. Right. So for them to fix the fraud is no more USAID money. It's gone. To fix the fraud in Minnesota, we're just going to withhold all funds from Minnesota. We're not going to give them.
That'll fix it. That's the right call.
And the same thing is going to happen with Medicare and Medicaid. They're going to say there's so much fraud. We're just going to turn the spigot off. So when people lose coverage all across the nation, they're just creating a cover story for this right now. What they're doing is they're saying, well, there's all this fraud, and we just don't want all the money going to fraud, and that's why you're losing coverage. You're losing coverage because we're going to take that coverage from you because we just can't trust that people can actually use this money correctly. And you understand you don't want fraud, right? So we just don't want to, we're just not going to give you anything because there are fraudsters out there. Now, if you said that to anybody in any other situation, that's a crazy thing to say out loud. That'd be like your bank being like, we don't want to give you your money because someone committed fraud against our bank. Like, that's a stupid thing to think. Nowhere else would that work. It only works here.
I took a look the other day at my electric bill, and I discovered that I had an old refrigerator, which was using too much electricity. So I burned my house down. Because that way the refrigerator wouldn't use too much electricity.
It's essentially the same thing. Yeah, it's essentially the same thing. But it's a long way to say every single accusation is a confession.
Right.
That's a long way to say that, right? Like, they have been going on about fraud for weeks, months, at this point, a year. Yeah. And what really is happening is that this group of people is siphoning as much money out of the government as they possibly can while pointing at others and being like, you don't want that guy to do any fraud, do you? Dude.
The grift is coming from inside the house.
Exactly.
Like, Trump has enriched himself with his fucking meme coin bullshit and other stuff. Trump himself, like, his net worth since he's been president has gone up billions. His family's net worth has increased dramatically. Kristi Noem clearly is enriching herself. Kash Patel is like fucking living the frat boy, party boy lifestyle, flying himself around on a fucking company jet.
Drinking
the company being America. Yeah, spraying half a beer at like fucking hockey players so they can rub themselves down together in the locker room or whatever he's into. Like, this is the most corrupt. The only other administration that was even close to this corrupt was Trump's first administration.
Yeah, the first one. Yeah.
Like when he hired his whole family, it was like, my kids, and then my kids fucking weird, uncanny valley son-in-law thing over there. They're the ones in charge.
They're going to do all the work. Yeah.
It's fucking crazy,
the same
man.
thing. It's the same thing. But Kristi Noem is a genuinely bad at her job. Like she's just not good at her job. And they're asking her questions that she should know, and she just doesn't know them. And the problem is there's no will to get rid of her.
Yeah, and she has no, when I read this, one of the things that struck me and like made me so mad is that she retreats into bullshit when she lies in a way that should just be entirely unacceptable, where she'll just be like, well, I was repeating what I heard. And it's like, you can't do that.
Yeah.
You don't get like with the domestic terrorism thing. She's like, well, you know, I was relaying what I was told from agents on the ground. It's like, you have a fucking big ass megaphone and a responsibility, and you're telling America that an act of domestic terrorism occurred. That's a big deal. You don't get to do that on vibes.
Yeah.
You don't. And you don't get to say, well, I did it on vibes, so you can't be mad at me.
Yeah.
If you do a bad job, I get to be mad at you for it. You should be fired for doing a bad job. It's not a retreat to say, well, I was just repeating something you said. Well, don't do that, asshole.
But this whole administration, they have that ability to not be accountable for anything they do. I mean, look at Trump a couple weeks ago posts an image of the Obamas as monkeys.
Yeah.
And nothing happened.
Nothing.
Literally nothing happened, guys. The worst thing that happened was Al Green held up a sign during the State of the Union. That was it, guys. That's the extent of any kind of inquiry into this. That's it.
You know, now that you say that, didn't Trump, tell me if I remember this right, didn't he also say that a staffer posted it? And then nobody said what staffer?
Well, and then they're like, okay, well, are they out of a job now?
Right.
And then there's nothing.
Right.
So they just, and the thing is there's so much shit that they'll never ask that question again.
Yeah.
So they only have to deal with the question one time because there's so much tomorrow. They found out that there's no teeth for any of the wrongdoing that you can do as an official in this country. They found that out. They found that out. They realized there's no, it's like when you're in a video game and you realize if you stand in this corner, there's no way the creature can hit you, and you could just fucking wallop it all you want and it'll die, and the next one will come and you'll wallop it, you die, you collect its fucking coins or its rings or its fucking keys or whatever. You can do whatever you want. You're essentially immune. Right. And that's what they do. They figured out they were immune. They're like, nobody can hurt me. Nobody can do anything. Nobody can change anything I do. When I do it, when I make a decision, even if the courts say I can't do it, I'm just like, fuck you. What are you going to do about it?
Yeah.
And it's nothing. The answer is nothing. We need somebody to go in and change all that. And it has to be done immediately, because if not, you just basically have a system where anybody who gets in power is now the person in power and they can't be touched.
Yeah. And we'll see. We will see, because at some point there will be a Democratic administration in power. And I'm very curious to know how the Republicans, like what their squawking will be, because they're fucking jerking off all over this every day.
Yeah. I mean, and the thing is like, you can only feel some sort of internal pressure from hypocrisy when you have a conscience.
Right. Yeah.
So the real issue is that they don't give a fuck when you point out that they're hypocrites. I mean, look at Mitch McConnell laughed at people when they pointed out his hypocrisy of appointing waiting to appoint someone and then appointing someone in 6 weeks. He laughed at them. He was
literally
like,
laughed about it.
I don't fucking care. I'll do what I want.
Yep.
Fuck you. I'm busy rotting. And then he went and rotted for a little bit. But he didn't give a fuck. And there's nothing you could do to shame that. He has no shame.
No shame.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, you have to have the tiniest amount of shame for me to kindle that fire. Because if you just are fucking dead inside, you're just like, I don't care. I will kill everyone and suck the marrow from their bones.
Exterminate.
It's a desolate, ugly little planet with absolutely no natural resources or strategic value. Questions?
Why is this godforsaken planet worth dying for?
Don't ask me. You're the one who's going to be dying.
All right, New York Times. Talarico triumphs as GOP heads to runoff. 6 takeaways from Texas. So this was a big, big race. James Talarico versus Jasmine Crockett.
Yeah.
It was really a race. In many ways, from what I read, it was a race less of policy substance and a lot more of tone. Which one was Texas going to embrace? Talarico, very much the softer, more let's work together, hands across America kind of
and
tone.
that's what he ran on. I listened to, we did a bonus show about him for Joe Rogan, the Joe Rogan show, because he was on Joe Rogan. So for one of the bonus shows for the other show I do, we did a bonus show because there's nothing there to like make a whole episode because it's really just Joe listening to him talk. So there's nothing there. I can't spend a whole episode being like, here's where the argument is wrong. There's nothing there. Yeah. But it was an interesting conversation. And what really you learn from him is that he had to, in his position, learn to reach across the aisle to at least find things that other people might care about on the other side to try to create laws, because there's just no power if you're just going only Democratic votes down. Right. There's just no power in that seat. So his whole plan was to be like, well, as a senator, we have to do this, that we have to reach across the aisle to try to do bipartisan laws and things like that in order for a bunch of people to like them, et cetera, et cetera. Great if you can get it to work. I don't think you can. I think the system's too far broken for that sort of thing to work. But it's my hope that doesn't soften his approach if he does get elected to letting people walk over you and then never return anything, right? That's my hope. Is the problem is with these guys who are across the middle is they're like, yeah, I'll work with you, and then when it comes time to do the reach around, they're half asleep. You're like, no, hold on a minute. So there's a real problem there, and I think like what I really like about Crockett was her perspective, and I thought that she was a great voice. She held people's feet to the fire when she interviewed them. I thought she was a real good candidate. I'm not down there. I don't vote in that race. So I don't know the ins and outs. It seemed like a pretty amicable race, though. It didn't seem like it was really, really contentious. Crazy that Paxson made it to the second round. Dude,
I know. What the fuck?
That guy's a scumbag.
That guy's the worst. He's the fucking worst.
The other guy's not great either. The other guy's not good either, but they're both trash. But, I guess if they were in a trash fire, which garbage bag
they are in the Republican Party, so I don't see any difference.
But one thing that is interesting is the turnouts. So if you look at the numbers behind this, the numbers for the Democrats that came out to vote in the primary was more than came out to vote in the Republicans. So that doesn't mean anything. It's an open primary. Right. So it could be that Republicans cross the aisle to make a decision to be like, well, I'd much rather face Talarico than I would Crockett. So I'm going to vote in this. I did the same thing. I voted for Romney in the primary. I voted in the Republican primary in 2012. Very specifically because, was it 12? 12, I think. Yeah. I voted for him very specifically because I said, you know what? I'm not interested in anybody else, whoever else was running. And I think maybe I might have voted against him. I don't remember. I remember voting in one of them. I don't remember who it was. Now that I think about it, it could have been.
But it was a strategic vote.
It was a strategic vote because I knew that that Obama was already in there.
Right.
And I voted for either him or it was somebody else who was crazier. I don't remember. But in any case, I did do it once because we have open primaries here in our state. So open primaries for us means you could just walk in and be like, I'm a guy. And what happens is you have to be registered. I think you have to be registered when there's closed primaries. But what open primaries do is they allow for more independent voters to come out and vote in these things. Yeah. And that also allows them to maybe have more of a voice in who gets to move forward. Open primaries help that happen. Should be ranked choice voting.
Should they just always be open primaries?
It should be ranked choice voting is what
that's very true,
But in any case, there was multiple times that I looked at the number of votes, though, that were happening in the Democrat and the Republican primaries when they happen. Because sometimes it's the other side is like, we're just going to lose anyway, so nobody's contesting it.
Right,
so the Democrat might run and it won't matter because the Republican is the one that is going to win the seat anyway. Right. But they'll just nominate a Democrat, and they'll be the one who wins. But there was several times I saw, I was like, wow, a lot more Democrats came out there. That's interesting. So, and it looked like in a couple of places, there was more Democrats voting in certain blocks in Texas and in North Carolina too. So it could be a good thing. You're seeing a big turnout, at least now. Hopefully that continues.
I think that there was a lot of inertia that maybe now that things are as bad as everybody said they would be. There's so many people that were like, you're all exaggerating. This Trump derangement syndrome, you're all exaggerating. It won't be that bad. And now it's clearly that bad. It's that bad. It's actually worse than we thought.
Yeah, it's way worse than we thought, and we knew he was going to do it because they had written it out for him in a document called Project 2025. So we knew it was going to fucking happen.
I will admit, I didn't see the Venezuela and Iran things coming.
Yeah.
I did not, that was not on my bingo card.
And I don't know that was explicitly, because I don't know that I remember seeing like take over other parts of the globe or any of that stuff. But I think like Trump is a chaos agent, so he's going to find ways to which he's going to morph it to himself. He's going to figure out a way to make Project 2025 worse somehow.
Right,
and
yeah.
he did.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, those bears appear to have guns and motorcycles.
We believe they may be involved in some sort of intergalactic drug cartel, perhaps affiliated with one of the interstellar wizard alliances.
Wizard alliances?
Yes, next question.
Just a thought, more of a shot in the dark, but we wouldn't happen to be invading Iran today, would we?
You got me. You got
I fell for it. You almost got away with that one.
me. No, I went too far. I almost had it. I should have stopped after the slides. I knew I should have stopped
I didn't even think anything about it until the cartel thing, and I was like, what?
It's from CNN. Texas Supreme Court stops Dallas County from counting late votes after confusion over new rules.
Expect more of this when we see what happens in the fall. There's going to be new rules, new confusion shit, people not being able to vote, people who have to stay there too late, people leaving the line because they're, it's going too slow. We saw all that stuff play out in Dallas. So one of the reasons Jasmine Crockett said that, she was there was less votes for her was because of voter suppression. And I don't disagree. I think there absolutely was voter suppression.
100%.
And it's going to be happening in areas of color.
Oh, 1,000,000%. The Republican game here has been very openly a game of voter suppression. Like they're not even trying to hide it.
Yeah.
They're so not trying to hide it that, think about and we talked about this when it happened. So when celebrities tweeted out, Taylor Swift tweeted out something initially before she declared her support for Kamala. She tweeted out something or Instagrammed or whatever, something it was basically everybody should just go register to vote. That should be a perfectly nonpartisan, yes, we live in a democracy.
Yeah, she didn't tell anybody what to vote.
Right. And that was absolutely the right was oh my God. When the response to our citizens should vote that is a political statement. That means that the other side does not want you to have a democratic voice. They are anti-democracy. They are intending to disenfranchise you because they know that enfranchisement is the path to their failure.
Yeah, for sure.
And they actually want to tear down our entire system of government. There's no other way to read that.
Yeah.
If voting is hey, everybody should vote. If all of a sudden that becomes political and you're on the other side of it, you are not pro-democracy. You're pro something else.
They trick the dummies by saying that it's the illegal immigrants that are voting. That's the problem, right? This last week, Michael Marshall wrote a article that was posted in The Guardian. And the article was, I listened to 170 hours of Rogan. Trust me, he hasn't flipped on Trump. And so that's the article. You can find it all over the place. Look at any of the socials. Cogdis Socials has it. It's a great article. Michael Marshall wrote it for The Guardian to talk about how Joe Rogan hasn't flipped on Trump. So in the article, Michael Marshall says, and this is something I have talked about on the show, and he asked me to actually send him some stuff about it. But the main argument with the Great Replacement theory, as Joe sees it, which is a conspiracy theory, right, is that they are shipping in illegals, what they call illegals, to send them to places across our country to boost the numbers of the census to gain votes in certain portions of our country. So the blue states want illegal immigration because if they can get it, they can ship those people to their states, then artificially boost their numbers, and then get more control in the House. Really sounds like a terrible plan all around.
Right.
And it hasn't worked out at all in the 2000 census, in the 2010 census, or the 2020 census. They lost a bunch of votes. Well, one person sent us a message and said, well, hey, genius, they opened up the floodgates after 2020. first off, that's not been their contention. They've said that those floodgates were open the whole time. But even still, if you look at the projections for what's supposed to happen in 2030, California is going to lose 4 votes. Illinois is going to lose a vote. New York's going to lose a vote. A bunch of blue states are going to lose votes. Texas is going to get 4, and Florida is going to get 4. So that's what we're seeing happening. So the idea that they say is they're shipping them all over. Joe literally thinks this is true. He's never once looked at these numbers. He has no idea. These numbers, he's never once looked at them. But even if you just look at like there's a guy from Carnegie Mellon who's like, yeah, well, the way the census is playing out now, because there is sort of an exodus from blue areas to some of these red areas because they're cheaper to live in. The cost of living is way cheaper in Arkansas than it is in Illinois.
Sure.
So people leave these blue areas for red areas, and that's what you're seeing. It's not about the number of undocumented immigrants, but they think it is. And even if it was, you're like, well, then you're the one gaining the votes.
Right. Yeah.
But they don't care. So it doesn't matter to them. That's their theory, and that's the theory that they're working off of.
Do they not know where people who are undocumented workers actually live?
I don't think they know. I don't think they care. The thing is that all they want to do is manipulate it for other people. So the dumb people like Joe Rogan
not the numbers.
will shit out this thing every episode, every third episode. And he heard it from J.D. Vance. So J.D. Vance was the first person to tell him about this.
And Peter Thiel programmed it into J.D. Vance.
Yeah, and so all these people, what they have is they all have the same message. And the message doesn't matter. If you bother to look up the message, you'll find that they're wrong.
Right.
They just don't care, because if they get somebody like Joe who won't do the extra step of looking into whether or not that message is true, he'll just believe it.
He'll megaphone it.
Just like, RFK comes on and says there's a bunch of fraud, and he just goes, oh my God, there's a bunch of fraud. Not, can you show me how the fraud works? Where is the fraud? Yeah. Did you arrest the people who were involved in the fraud? Are you shutting the spigot off for the fraud? And will the people who regularly receive those benefits continue to do so?
Where on the doll is the fraud touching you? That's really what we've got to ask.
Is the fraud biome? It's in his gut biome. I guarantee it.
Is the fraud wearing jeans right now?
Is it in the hot tub?
In the hot tub?
I don't know much in this crazy world, but I do know that if you don't let us fuck this asshole, we are gonna have our dicks and our pussies all covered in shit.
The story's from Mother Jones. Gregory Bovino is now under criminal investigation.
This should happen more often.
God, I fucking love this.
This dude throws a canister of gas into a crowd. He warns them ahead of time, and then he throws the gas in there. And they're not allowed to do this, right? It's something they're not allowed to do, to disperse people. And it's filmed. It's on film. And they submitted it to Minnesota, and Minnesota's like, we're going to charge him.
Good. Fucking
good.
They
should have been doing this from the beginning. When that guy in Chicago got shot in the face, that priest got shot in the face, what should have happened was Brandon Johnson, the mayor, should have went to his fucking chief of police and said, chief of police.
No,
and
it's
said,
the police of chief now.
The police of chief is fucking the best.
I love it.
I would have a sandwich called the police of chief. In any case, the chief of police, he should have said, get out there, get your guys out there. You roll up and you tell them that they have to send somebody, like, we're going to find out who that is, and we're going to arrest that person. Because you can't just have people assaulting your citizens without any fucking repercussions whatsoever. It's like, just because they're part of the federal government doesn't mean anything. That means that if I'm part of the federal government, if I'm like a fucking IRS agent, I get to murder people and it doesn't matter. That's stupid.
It is stupid. Like, we've talked about this before. If we are going to, as a society, say, hey, here you go. Here's handcuffs and a gun. You have a greater, not lesser responsibility.
Yeah.
You have a much greater responsibility. And you asked for that. So you knocked on our door.
And it pays pretty well.
Yep. And you said, I would like that responsibility. I am uninterested in the argument that it's like, wow, you're asking too much. Then don't fucking sign up for it.
Yeah. If
you can't do this job and do it morally and do it legally, then like, go get a different job.
Yeah, man.
Like if you're like, well, I was afraid. Well, fucking, if you're afraid of stuff, Don't do the thing you're afraid. Like, I'm not going to go be a fucking scuba instructor because I discovered the ocean's scary, man.
So don't do it.
So I'd be like a bad scuba instructor.
Like somebody who has a fear of pills being a pharmacist.
Right.
Like, dude, you shouldn't do your job then.
I'm a hang gliding instructor, said the man afraid of heights. No, what?
No.
Like, don't do shit you're afraid of. Like, these guys, they retreat into bullshit because it's bullshit as a way to just get away with whatever they always wanted to get away with.
Yeah.
And I'm glad they're going to, because that's the only way the next guy is going to think twice.
Yeah, absolutely.
Look up at the sky and hear an awful sound. 4 hellfire missiles in the sky. I watch my life flash before my eyes. But at least there's one huge plus. We know that the bomber was a gay woman drone pilot. Hashtag girl boss. A gay woman drone pilot. Hashtag girl boss.
This story is from the Independent. Department of Justice admits 47,635 Epstein files,
specific,
including Trump allegations, were removed.
We should also at the same time talk about this other Epstein story.
This is from CNN. Epstein deposition videos show Hillary Clinton in heated moments with lawmakers. Bill Clinton addressing the hot tub photo.
Undressing, more like it.
Hey. I watched parts of those depositions that were not leaked, but that were made public.
They released the entirety of both of them, I think.
Which was a whole thing. Like the Clintons were fighting to do the whole thing publicly and not behind closed doors. And then fucking Lauren Boebert is secretly videotaping.
She takes a picture.
And then she posts it to her social.
What I love is Hillary Clinton saying, this is just typical, and like yelling at her. And you hear Lauren Boebert in the background. She's like, I'll take it down. I'll take it down. I'll take it down.
Yep.
And then when she's asked about it later, she's like, I just thought it was right to put it out there. She's like totally unapologetic after the fact.
Yeah.
But during the moment, she's like, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to do it. Oh my God. I'm going to fall on my sword.
But again, like, there's no actual repercussions.
Yeah.
So she violates the rules in a way that she knew she could get away with.
Yeah.
And once it's posted, it's the internet. It's never unposted. You know?
Exactly. She's like, I'll delete it. Well, who cares?
Who cares? It's already out.
She already did it. We knew that there was more files. They said we knew that there was other files that they didn't release. We knew this sort of thing. And we knew that it was very specifically about the Trump allegations. This isn't a fucking secret. We knew it. Now it's 100% true. That is a thing that happened.
But it's only 47,635.
That's not that many in comparison to 3 million, I guess. Yeah.
Well, 3 million pages. I don't know how many pages. This is files.
That's true.
So I don't know.
Oh.
Yeah,
you know what? I thought it was pages when I read it first. You're right.
From what I've read, there's something like another 3 million pages.
Feels like a lot.
Feels like a lot, man.
Feels like a lot. I wonder if there's any bad stuff in there.
Well, they probably held back just stuff that didn't matter, because that's what you hold back.
They just kept all the other stuff in there. God, it's just so fucked that they were like thick as thieves. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Also, there's a whole, this article is very long. This article about Hillary Clinton and Bill Clinton is very long. Basically, the Hillary stuff is Hillary didn't really know him. The only time that they ever got really heated was when Nancy Mace tried to ask her about Lutnick. So evidently she was close to Lutnick, who was in the files. And they're trying to ask her about Lutnick. And she's like, the only time I ever really worked with Lutnick was when he lost a bunch of people during 9/11. And I was the senator at the time. And there was a back and forth there to try to do stuff. Or maybe she wasn't the senator, or she was working with it. I don't know exactly when she was a senator, to be honest with you. But she was saying that she was working with that group of people at 9/11. So she was during the World Trade Center, because he lost a bunch of people and she knew him and he was at the thing. And she just kept on, Nancy Mace just kind of kept on trying to ask the same questions. And she's like, I don't know anything about Lutnick and Epstein. Like, all I know is like how I worked with him.
Right.
So and then Boebert asks about Pizzagate, for Christ's sake.
Oh my God.
You're such a fucking dumb person. She doesn't, she is genuinely so stupid. She asks the dumbest question. She's absolutely useless. And the only reason she's out there is so she could be on that Reddit, that hot or not Reddit that they have for like women in the thing where they're Nancy Mace and her are fighting for updoots. but the two of them are asking all these questions. Bill Clinton is getting grilled about, he's in a fucking plane. Are you in a hot tub? Who rubbed your shoulders? Good. fucking good.
Ask away,
Don't
man.
give a fuck. And if it comes out that he was lying or if he was like getting a fucking handy from somebody in that fucking hot tub, all the better that he has to catch shit for that. I don't fucking care at all. They seem to think that somehow exposing Bill Clinton as somebody who is tied to Epstein is going to hurt anybody's feelings. I don't know a single person who gives a single tiniest fuck in the world about Bill Clinton.
Thank you. Bill Clinton was the goddamn president in the 1990s.
And he sucked. He wasn't a good president.
That was so long ago.
Yeah.
That was so long ago. He was president, if I recall, from like 92 to 99.
Yeah.
Like, what the fuck? Like, we've had a George W. Bush, a fucking Obama, a Trump, a Biden, another Trump. He's 5 fucking administrations ago. He's not been politically relevant since I was actually in college.
He's not politically relevant at all. The only thing he does is once in a while give a campaign speech for somebody who's a Democrat.
Yes.
Good. If he goes to jail, I don't care.
If he did a bad, go to jail.
Even if he was, like, even if they found, like, let's say they found one of these big senators. Let's say Bernie Sanders is in the fucking files.
Throw him away.
And Bernie Sanders is fucking found out, and it's not true, so don't, like, send me a message or whatever. But just, like, let's say that Bernie Sanders, and I like Bernie Sanders, right? I like him. I like the things he says. If they found out, I'd be like, oh, that sucks anyway.
Yep.
Anyway, and I would move on with my fucking life. I wouldn't care. I'd be like, cool, man. They got rid of a fucking creep. The only thing I'd be worried about is this DOJ going after people, specifically like attacking people who they don't like, right? That would be a problem. I would have an issue with that.
I do think that that's probably what this is.
And they're bringing them in because they want to fucking make them crawl on the carpet.
Exactly. But you know, like you and I talked off air a few weeks ago. It was like, if like my kid did something like that, the people I love most in the world, I'd be like, well, cool, we got to call the cops. You're going to jail.
Yeah.
Like, sorry, like we are not family anymore. I'm calling the cops. I don't know. You don't fucking rape people. Yeah. That's it. Like, full stop. Easiest fucking moral decision.
Sure.
I'll be sad about it.
Yeah.
I'll be mad about it. I have feelings. But like, I don't have a complicated decision to make.
Yeah. The decision tree is real easy in all this.
Did you rape?
What in earth is happening if you think that this is going to affect anybody? Nobody should care about this. What I care about, obviously, is them not having anything and making them answer questions for it. That's the thing that really bothers me, is because they're just, all they're doing is just trying to inflict damage and hearsay damage on these people if nothing ever happened.
I know.
I wouldn't put anything past Bill Clinton. That dude was a horn dog in office. He got caught being gross. He's been gross before in the past. He's had accusations against him.
Very credible.
Don't give a fuck if that guy falls off the map. 100%, right? But have actual allegations. Don't just tie shit together that's not like that you're like trying to ask questions about. There's got to be something in these documents and something in the past that links him to it. If that's the case, if you're going to actually have a case against the guy.
Look, I agree with you. Have evidence or don't have evidence.
Yeah.
Like a picture of a man in a hot tub. I've been in a hot tub.
You could have, there's videos, there's images of me in a hot tub.
That's nothing.
Yeah.
But like a hot tub is not sexy times. A hot tub is hot water.
Yeah, it's a hot tub.
It's a hot tub.
Some people go in their jeans.
Yeah.
It's all very well to laugh at the military, but when one considers the meaning of life, it is a struggle between alternative viewpoints of life itself. And without the ability to defend one's own viewpoint against other, perhaps more aggressive ideologies, then reasonableness and moderation could quite simply disappear. That is why we'll always need an army. And may God strike me down were it to be otherwise.
This story's from the AP. Sprawling investigation finds decades of sexual abuse among Catholic priests in Rhode Island.
This is something we don't cover very often. There's a lot of this that happens back and forth. And it's something that we don't cover very often. But when you read the story, you find that they're shuffling priests around.
Yep.
They never stop doing any of this stuff.
Never, man.
Somebody gets fucking caught, and then they're like, well, send them over state lines. And then they just send somebody to a different area. And it's all documented because they know they have to keep records on all this stuff. And then people find out and they're like, oh, hey, weren't you shuffling priests around? And weren't they diddling a bunch of kids? Like, we basically had a religious structure that had this embedded in it in all 50 states. There was somebody and people were shifted around between these things, never facing real repercussions, able to inflict damage again, and again. This is something this is systemic. It's a systemic problem with the Catholic Church. That's a real issue, and it's never been addressed. The only thing that's ever been addressed is individual victims have maybe won money. That's the only thing that's happened.
It's an organization that honestly should not be allowed to survive. Like at some point, organizationally, we should be able to say, hey, there's a pattern here. It's not one or two bad apples. It's not a dozen bad apples. It's a systemic, bureaucratic, intentional hiding and moving and abuse of children. Like you guys aided and abetted the rape of children. If that's not something that we can't say like, hey, as an organization, you just can't be here.
Yeah.
Like you just can't be here anymore. Sorry. Like we're taking away your fucking status of like being a charitable organization, whatever that's fucking called for churches. It's not a 501c3. I think it's maybe a 4. And like you can't, like you got to sell all your real estate and you got to put in a victims fund. Like at some point, we should be able to say, like, you can't be here anymore. In this article, one of the things that made me grouchy when I read it is like somebody from the church was like, look, you guys are painting this like this is something that's ongoing. And this is something that like we have since, found out about and cooperated with authorities. And we've done our best to remediate. Even if I believe that, your response should never be that. Your response should be only, this is a disgusting black mark on everybody that was involved, and the church is dedicated to doing everything in its power to try to fix this problem. What can we do? It's all that matters.
There's never even an apology. It's always like they're always taken aback.
Yeah.
It's crazy because they feel entitled to it. Mm-hmm. That's why, everybody. Yeah. It's because they think they do enough good to rape some kids on occasion. That's literally what they believe, right? It's not, I'm not making this up. It's listen to how they respond to every single accusation. It's always like, well, come on, man, we do a bunch of good. Yeah. You gotta throw a couple kids down the volcano once in a while. That's how it works. Am I wrong?
No, you're not wrong at all. It's exactly the right take on it. They really seem to think that there's a fucking trolley problem.
Yeah.
Where on the one side
you're absolutely right.
On the one side, we fed some unhoused people or something. And on the other side, you raped a kid. And it's like, hey, man, there's nothing you can ever do that makes up for raping people. That's just like, there's no like, you can't pay the piper enough for that to make that okay. Like they also seem to forget that the only reason that they're cooperating is because they've been caught. That's it. Like they got caught and
that's
now,
a great point.
Now they feel sad. Now they have policies in place. Yeah. Now they have procedures to cooperate. Now, but you didn't have that for fucking ever.
Well, they didn't.
Because you didn't care. You were like pro kid rape.
They didn't hand anybody over. They handled it internally.
Right.
Right? Like, you know how you handle this is the moment you find out fucking father grabbing McHand's face is fucking diddling kids. You take him and you say, hey, please, we have proof that this guy is diddling kids. Can you arrest him for us, please? And then he gets arrested.
Yep.
That's how that works. That's how it would work in every single business, every single charity, every single fucking social group in the United States. Yep. That's how it would work. You'd say, somebody did a bad thing. We're going to the police and we're going to fix it. Instead, what happened is, oh, well, we'll just, you know what? Maybe he just needs some more Jesus in his life. Let's send him to Pennsylvania and, maybe we'll put him in charge of kids there and we'll see if that fixes them. Maybe he's learned from the error of his ways. And then he does it again and they're like, oh, well, back to the drawing board. We'll send him to South Dakota. And then they just keep doing it over and over again. There's a way to fix it. It's an easy way to fix it.
Easy way.
Zero tolerance policy to diddlers. They didn't do that. They never did that.
No.
And now they're fucking indignant about it. Fuck you.
Fuck you. Yes.
All right. That's going to wrap it up for our show this week. We will be back on Thursday with a funny show, and we're going to leave you, like we always do, with the Skeptic's Creed.
Credulity is not a virtue. It's fortune cookie cutter